Hello everybody. This demonstration is going to show how to combine your elements that you've been kind of working into one piece. So this becomes kind of that advanced stage a little bit where you're making multiple things and you combine into one form versus, you throw a bowl and you're done. So I have this all trimmed up. This is not overly dry. If you cannot do this, the same day, hopefully you did wrap this up kind of in like a wet paper towel, or a towel that has most of the water out of it, and then in plastic, because you don't want this. This doesn't work if it's way too wet, and this doesn't work if it's way too dry. Okay, so this is all set. Now, when you have your ring, you can start deciding, where you're going to put your top at, let me back up for a second. You need to decide on if you're going to have a piece, if you're going to have a project where you're going to hang, and we're going to create these loops on the side with the top on it, or if you're going to have a bottom and a top, because there's two different directions you can go with that. Okay, once you've determined that, it's up to you on which one you want to do. You can start looking at this and deciding, what would be a good area where it would be like a good top or a bottom. Now, I like to look for anything that might have a gouge in it. So like right here, you can see that, hopefully you can see, there's a little gouge within that. I'll try to zoom in on that. So this would actually be a good spot where you might want to, this could be the back kind of thing, or you might want to put your top on here because your top that you put on is going to go down, it's going to cover it up a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate, the first one I'm going to demonstrate is the one which will have the hangers on it. Okay, so I'm going to choose one of my tops. I got about 4 of them. I got this one, and I got these which are a little on the wet side, of which if I decide I want to use them, I can use a blowtorch or a heat gun to get them so they're not nearly as wet. Okay, since it's a top, it doesn't matter nearly as much if it's a little on the wet side, but you still want it a little on the firm side if possible. Okay, so I'm going to take this one. I take it back. I'm going to kind of work with this one right here as the part that I'm going to be attaching onto here. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to really thin out the walls on the bottom part here. So I take this thing, it's called a fettling knife. It's not sharp by any means, but I want to go around here and I want to trim a lot of this excess off. It'll make the clay a lot more pliable so I can bend it kind of around the ring. So I'm going around and just really thinning the walls out. Hopefully you can kind of see that. Still really thick on the middle here. So I'm just digging this around. Whatever's comfortable for you to hold. Okay. Now in this one, I did turn it into that oval shape I talked about. These are still wet, and I could, and I'll probably even demonstrate on that as well, I could turn it into that because if this was going to hang, you want it so it doesn't hit against that wall nearly as much. Now this piece is going to be the part that you're going to be attaching onto your ring right here. Okay. Now this is a little on the dry side, so I know I'm going to have a couple issues with it, but I'll just kind of have to deal with it. If this was yours, I might say, you probably can't do it. So try not to let it dry. I completely forgot to cover this last night, and I screwed up. So if that was you, I would say, wrap it in plastic. Put up, take it back. Get a rag, get it wet, squeeze most of the water out of it, wrap this up, put it in plastic. It'd be good the next day. So I'm going to cheat a little bit by going in and kind of carving this. The thing is, I need to be able to push this down, and it broke. So that's why you don't want to do that. So I'm going to take one of my softer ones. The same technique. And this one will attach a lot easier. It's a little on the soft side, which means I'm going to kind of mess it up a little bit as I'm attaching, but it kind of is what it is. Okay, so that's all set. I'm going to take this, find my area I'm going to put it on, which again, right here, because that's where the part is at. Take my fettling knife. So I know this is here. I want my top right here. I'm gonna stick my knife into it, so it's right in the middle, and I wanna carve out a pretty big hole. And this is where you really can see, how good of a job you did on your project. Do you have a nice big hole like this one, or is it something you can barely put a toothpick through? So you can see how big that hole is, because I know I'm going to be attaching this right on top of here. So I know that I have plenty of space on there. Let me slide this one out so you can see a little better. So this is going to go right here. Okay. And you might decide right now, it's like, this top is way too big for this. Well, if you feel that way, then you have to throw a new top, okay, and get even less clay than I said before on there. If you're okay with it, then we're fine. So the next part is that we need to slip and score this. So I'm going to take this knife. Do your best job not to do what I'm doing, where you have this on a hard surface. At least have something to cushion it, so you don't start denting the crap out of it. So I'm going to go through, score this up. Really good, especially if your top is a little on the dry side. And then we also need to slip it. So we have these bottles of slip. Hopefully this is not clogged up. If it is, you can always take the top off and use your fettling knife to dig inside of it. But it's just watered down clay that acts as like a really nice glue. And we're going to add that onto it. If your piece is really dry, like this one was, score this one as well, and then slip it. Okay. Otherwise, this is pretty soft. So I don't really need to do that. So I'm going to set this upright. And now I'm going to push down on here so it attaches to the ring. I want to look at it like this, because this is my chance to adjust it however I need to. So right now I can tell I need to pull this over a little bit more. And I can start sealing and pushing down between where the bodies of clay are hitting. So no matter what, if you're doing the one that hangs or if you're doing the one that is going to be standing, you have to have a top on it. And you want to try to get it as centered as you can on it. Okay. Now I like to have, I'm going to take this towel, I'm going to use this because I don't want anything to be touching the side of here, because I know how so soft it is. But having that towel there, then I know this isn't touching anything. I like to have these little balls of clay attached onto there. So I'm going to take a piece of clay, this is optional, and I like to set it in right in there. I just like that look. If you don't like it, you don't have to do it. But I always like that. And then I'm going to spend some time smoothing this all out and getting a nice line. I can even go in with one of my tools, like my double-ended loop tool, and help redefine some of your lines that are on there. If you want them completely smoothed out, that's fine. I always felt like still separating this shape from this shape still looks really nice. So while you want them to attach, so they don't fall apart, I like to still have that line defined on there. It still seems like it's two separate pieces. Okay. Okay, so this first part is done. Next part is adding the sides. And I'm only going to add one and then take it off and show you how to add the bottom on there. So I have this clay right here. I'm going to clean off an area, slide this down, and I'm going to roll a coil. You have to roll it on the wedging table or grab, I have some boards that have this canvas on it. You can do it on there as well. You need to be able to roll these coils. And you want to roll them with clay that's just a little on the harder side, because this is a little on the harder side. So remember, clay shrinks. So you try to work with clay that is the same as much as possible. Now, obviously this was a little on the wet side, so there's a little more of a risk with that breaking, but we'll just hopefully it's not. Once I have a coil, I figure out a section that I want, and I decide on the size of it. So I hold this back up again, because this is going to be attached like right here. I'm going to temporarily attach it, and then you're going to bend this up so it looks like that. Okay, so if you are happy with this size, take it off, set it down, and just make sure you have more of them that are identical. Let me shape it up a little bit. So now I have two that are the same size. I recommend having like 4 to 6, because you're gonna mess up. I mess up. If you don't think I mess up, remember this piece? So don't feel bad if you mess up, it's part of it. Okay, so I use my palm, going back and forth, looking at this, making sure that it's the right thickness. Okay, got 3. I got 1 more. And so we got 4 that are identical. Next step. Looking at the bottom here, looking at the top, deciding where I want my middle to be at. Drawing a straight line across, marking that. I'm gonna hold this, so I'm looking at it. I'm looking down, and it seems like that's right. It seems like this is halfway between here and here, halfway between there and there. Get my scoring tool. Score this area pretty hard. And a little slip. Let me take this coil right here. I'm going to bend this into the loop on the table. Set that down. Kind of push, squeeze, pushing, squeezing, and kind of working this into the clay body. Okay. Now, I also want to push this up a little bit because I want to make sure that when this hangs, you know, that there's room for you to put like a leather strap or something so it can go over and hang on a nail above here. Or what I also like to do is take some clay and set this back down again. And I'm going to create some balls of clay that are all about the same. So I got 2 right there for one side, and I would make 2 more for the other side. Because now is the easiest time to make sure that they are all the same. Because I can take this, and this is really wet, so I don't need to score this. I need to get this down here again so I don't damage it. I'm going to take this clay, push that ball right there, take my thumb, press in hard, and then pull down with it. Cracked a little bit, so I'm going in there to make those a little bit smoother, but you can see my thumbprint in there pretty noticeably. And just kind of work that clay in a little bit more. Take another piece of clay, press in, then down. And work that in. So then my design has this build-up right there. And I can look at this and decide, you know, do I like that? Do I not like that? And then you do the same thing to this side. So this is the time it is that when I look at the side of here like this, is like, well, I want to push that down and center that a little better. That looks a little nicer that way. And then when you get the other one in, you make sure that, you know, that this side isn't higher or lower than the other side. So this is the technique you do if you want it to hang. Okay, and then put your name. I mean, this is right now, this is my front over here because it has a little ball there. So I would put my name on the back here somewhere. Okay, because this is meant to be a piece you only see from one side. Now I'm going to take this off, smooth out that down, and I'm going to show you how to do the foot. So what's nice about this one being wet right now is I can leave this on the back, because no matter what, you want to put something on the back. Because we want this to dry a little bit slower, so no matter what, I want you to cover this in plastic, at least for a day after you're done with it. So this piece is going to sit inside of here. So whether it's, you know, you let it dry a little bit or it's still really soft, it's nice if it's soft because it's so malleable. So I can take this, and I want to make sure that when I set this down on here that it is centered. So I'm going to scoot the camera back so you can see a little better. Okay, now that I have the camera scooted back, I wanted you to be able to see this a little bit nicer. So again, this is kind of squishy, so I know that it'll conform to this well, and then I might want to grab that heat gun or that propane torch to do this. You can either design it so it is obviously off-center, realizing that if it's way off-center, it's going to tip. Okay, right now it won't because it's stuck to this, but you can tip it a little bit and kind of get away with it. You know, sometimes people will put a handle on this as well to help with the weight on this side, so that's up to you if you want to do that. Mine, I'm going to try to keep as centered as I can. So my eyes looking down here. I'm going to kind of take this, squeeze this around a little bit. And then I also want to sometimes have a friend and say, does that look right, you know, to you? Or does it need to be like this or like this? But once I have that, I'm going to kind of peel these off a little bit because it's kind of sticky. Is I want to use that heat gun or that propane tank or torch to solidify this. Otherwise, it's going to fall on. It's going to fall, so it's going to be kind of an issue. So I'm going to dry this real quick and come right back. Okay, now that I have this dried, still kind of warm. I know that just the outside is pretty dry. The inside is still a little on the wetter side. So you can't rely on this being able to hold the weight up entirely, but I needed to have some more rigidity that's in there. So once I feel like this is right, I'm gonna set this off to the side and slip and score again. So I'm gonna go in, score this side and here, and then grab my ring, and I can actually see the imprint. It's like I already know where I need to put this at. Score this. Notice I'm not cutting a hole in because we want this to hold liquid, and if you put that in, it's going to come right back out. Put in my slip. I also want to make sure I can take this off. Goes back down. Pinch the sides in like before. And again, this is where you have the most flexibility on design. So does that look centered? It looks like it's a little off. So I'm going to just shift it. I feel like that's better. So be careful not to push this in too much, because you want to, if you have to make a kind of a minor change like that, it's a little bit easier to do it when it's not attached. Okay. Otherwise, I can just use the back of my fingernail or a wood tool to go in and just make sure this is sealed and make sure it looks clean. Also, turn it this way, because we're doing three-dimensional stuff. It's definitely leaning that way. So I'm going to try to push it back so it's nice and centered. And here again, I can go through and try to pick some things up a little bit and clean up. Okay. Other than that, the way that you need to take care of it at this point is we will have to lay this down, because I don't really trust this sitting up. If you feel like it's fine, then you can take the risk and just bag it and very carefully put this on your shelf. If this is taller than, which it probably is, then 12 inches, it's not going to fit. So what we do, I need to run this underneath here again. You can also take the bottom of there, clean this out. This is a great place to put your name on the inside of here. You're definitely going to grab a towel or two. And even your sponge kind of comes in handy sometimes as you work with it. Just by looking at this, I could even take some clay stick it in there. And on this side. So this is elevated. I don't want anything touching here. And I don't want anything touching over here because it'll just damage it. So I think that's fine. And then I'm gonna lightly bag it. So I do want this to dry out a little bit so I can work with it more the next day. So lightly bag this, pick this up, sit over there, and it works out pretty good. Get your stuff cleaned up. You know, anything left over that you ended up not using goes in that blue bin again. That's over by there. Otherwise, good luck in your project. Remember, decide which way you're going to go with it. Let me help you out with it if you need help, and I will see you in class. Thanks.